Hey, New York Jet fans from all around the world. Welcome to Laugh Through the Turbulence, a New York Jets podcast, the show that delivers you all your Jets content. Here are your hosts, John, Adnan, and Monty. All the best to the New York Jet fans. J-E-T-S, Jets, 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 go Jets.
All right, welcome to Laugh Through the Turbulence, a New York Jets podcast that can be featured on YouTube and Spotify. We're your hosts. I'm John. Adnan is going to say hey.
So what's going on, everybody?
The other one is Monty. I was trying to do it so the people listening could fucking figure out who's who by voice, right? They're not in a visual spectrum like we are.
Got it.
And Monty's cat is making a presence too.
What's up? This is Dante. Say me out.
Dante the cat. He is a white cat with some black features.
John is gonna go so overboard for Spotify.
I am. I want the Spotify fans to come pouring
get the full experience.
Yeah, get the whole experience, the visual. I am wearing a white Keyshawn Johnson jersey from his rookie year, so that would be the 80s through mid 90s version and whatever. But I'm just gonna leave it at that. Fuck it. All right, so we are 7 days away from the draft. It literally starts in 7 days from now.
Can't wait.
It's roughly 8 o'clock, so that music's gonna come up at some point in 7 days,
and we will be here with you.
Are we going to be doing a live show, or are we going to be like at bars? I guess we're going to do a live show, right? Or
we should. Yeah, we should do a live show. I think. Yeah, that's,
we'll make that. Yeah, we'll make that live for the YouTube audience, so they can watch, and obviously they'll be able to watch later. So that'll be cool.
Oh yeah.
But basically today we're going to kind of review, I guess, all the latest mock drafts and predictions for the New York Jets. I guess we're going to start with Peter Schrager, right? Now, I want to just share a couple. I'm going to be sharing screens, so the Spotify crowd won't really see it. But basically, here's Peter Schrager's predictions for the Jets since 2019. In 2019, he predicted Quinnen Williams. Guess what? He was right. In 2020, he said Becton. He was right. 2021, Zach Wilson. He was right. He didn't expect the ABT pick, or I guess that's not what he was doing there. So we had 2 firsts that year, right? So I guess he didn't really do the second pick there. Anyway, in 2022, he went with Sauce and Garrett Wilson. He was right. He didn't predict the Jermaine Johnson trade up, but that's okay. I'll give him that. In 2023, Lucas Van Ness, who isn't Will McDonald, but is an edge guy. And I get Lucas went to the Packers, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Jets couldn't have done it, right? And actually, what's interesting, I think when I was watching videos on that, he was on the Jets board, right? Which is interesting in itself.
So Peter Schrager, as we have discussed, and as you may know if you've Googled him by now, he works for the NFL Network. He's been on Pat McAfee show. He's a fairly well known NFL insider, pundit, commentator, whatever you want to call him. And he has some inside connections, and he has some insider information, and he tends to have a fairly good finger on the pulse of what's going on. And he's picking Brock Bowers. So,
yes, he is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yes, but also he's also a Jersey boy. So he is a Jets fan. So I mean, he's been wrong on a lot of other teams' picks, but he does land the Jet picks quite often.
Yeah, the first rounders, at least. The first rounders.
First rounders, yes, which makes me feel like he's going to be right. Anyway, this is what he had to say about Bowers. He said it's a special prospect. In fact, he's been told by multiple GMs that I'm not high enough on Bowers and that his ability after the catch sets him apart from just about every tight end prospect since Kyle Pitts. Excellent player, a winner, and another weapon for Rodgers to exploit. This pairing does indeed make a lot of sense. Adnan, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I've been the guy, and I think Monty has, and John has, right? All of us have been kind of beating the drum for an offensive lineman. And so this is a little bit discouraging for me. I feel like if he is right again, I don't know if it's the best pick for them. I mean, we've hashed this out before. It's interesting that he has been right a lot. As Monty and John had alluded to, he is an NFL insider. He does have, pretty strong connections inside of the Jets room. This is also the guy who, over the past few years, has picked all of the Super Bowl matchups and winners correctly. So he really kind of knows what he's doing. And it's interesting that he went with Bowers, but I think that's because he is hearing this directly from the Jets. So yeah, I'm a little disappointed to see that, but we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of piggyback on your, lack of enthusiasm about it, I'm not too enthused either. I've been, very much on the train of let's get alignment in here. Specifically for me, Fatanu is really my favorite, just, because I think he represents solidification. He can back us up on a lot of different things, and he also could step into a lead role either as a tackle or a guard. A lot of versatility there, and I think that's what we need more than anything, because we got, Tyron Smith, who hasn't played a full season since 2015, and we got AVT coming off 2 back-to-back season enders, and Morgan Moses actually isn't really in the picture of health as he has been, even though he's been super solid in his career. He did have a rotator cuff injury he played through last year, and he did have a pectoral surgery as well recently, I believe in January or somewhere around there. So it's not comforting to know that, we are one injury away or 2 injuries away from being in a very similar situation to last year, where our QB, be it Rogers, or be it, Tyrod Taylor, or whoever else we pick up behind him, is ended up, being smashed into the turf, repeatedly, and is unable to get the ball off, and our offense is flat like it was. Even as long as Rodgers can stay healthy, even if he's getting sacked all day long, I still think we'll be better off. But if he's getting sacked all day long, it's only a matter of time before the injuries pile up, that damage accumulates, and we're in somewhat of a similar situation. I like the idea of Bowers spreading the field, giving that option in the slot, coming across the middle. That is good, but I don't think that is enough to offset what would happen if we don't go linemen. So it is a bit disappointing. I honestly, based on his track record, and based on the betting odds, and based on just the fans, I mean, like, as you guys, as I've said it before, I'm a very active member on the official New York Jets fan page, and I speak to a lot of people all the time, throughout the day while I'm bored, on the side, on the bathroom, sitting
a lot,
whatever. Yeah. So I talk to a lot of fans. I have, little debates and arguments, and, go back and forth with a lot of people. And there are a lot of hype men for Brock Bowers boys, as they call themselves. There are a lot of Bowers boys out there who are, it's like, I feel like it's almost like the same people that were like Zach Wilson truthers. I feel like that train is over, and they've maybe jumped to the new flavor of the week to, be all on his balls is Brock Bowers. So, I mean, whatever floats your boat, I guess. But, for me, I've always rooted for the laundry and put the team first. So I never just, hang my hat on one particular player, not even Rodgers. So it's like, I put the team first, but, whatever, if these people want to do that. But, anyway, that's here nor there. It's just Bowers, I don't know, not the most exciting pick. I'm not terribly pissed off if we get him, but I'm a lot more nervous with him as our first round pick, because that means we absolutely need to nail the next pick, and it needs to be, some sort of protection for Aaron Rodgers.
Question before I reply. You said rooting for the laundry. Is that a term that I'm not familiar with?
Yeah, you never heard for that? You ever heard that? Yeah, I think it's an old person's term. I've only ever heard really older fans say it, but yeah, I've heard. You say I
I
root
have
for the
never heard
laundry.
that term before. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like rooting for the jersey or rooting for the laundry.
Basically, you support
Okay.
support
I
the
buy
org.
it. I didn't want to dwell too much on it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm actually starting to come around to this, and yeah, I'm still in favor of the offensive lineman, given that I'm an overly conservative, cautious person, right? But I will say this: if everything goes right, which it never does, Brock Bowers is right in the starting lineup in 2 tight end sets. It's going to be sexier, right? It's a sexier pick than a lineman, right? But I will say this: there's still linemen out there that could service the back end role, right? And that could kind of fall into a starter role if something happens. In terms of playmakers, so skill position players that catch the ball. And so I'm thinking mostly wide receiver market. There isn't a whole lot that is going to do it, right? At the level that this guy's ceiling is, which apparently is very, very high, right? So I kind of get it, right? In terms of like a bust rate, I think the bust rate and we've been talking about bust rates in our chat a lot lately, which we don't share with anyone because, well, sometimes I add some filthy stuff that would get me into trouble. But essentially, the bust rate on Brock Bowers, I mean, it's interesting. Offensive linemen have a lower bust rate typically in the first round. It's linemen, right? Tight ends have a higher bust rate, I think I recall, right?
Tight ends have a higher bust rate.
But
it's not night and day. I'll be forthcoming.
Yeah.
It's not like it's night and day. It's like the bust rate for it's like a few percent off, like 5%.
Yeah, it's not that crazy. Like but I will say this: like most of the tight ends that are drafted in the first round are typically borderline first rounders, right? So like they're basically like kind of picked at the end of the road there because like a team, is just like, well, there's not really much high end talent here, right? Let's go for maybe a little bit more of a need. Let's go tight end, right? Mm-hmm. So like I kind of get it, but no one has been this talented. And like, I mean, you could argue the last couple top 10 talents that were tight ends that were taken, right? We got Hawkinson and Fant, right? Fant's been predominantly a bust, right? Although he's very good. I think he's way better than he's getting credit for just because of the QB play he's been surrounded by, right? It was mostly Denver and then Geno Smith who's been utilized in the wide receivers, right?
Right.
Hawkinson is one of the best tight ends in the league right now. Kyle Pitts had the worst QB situation the last couple of years. I mean, he went from who did he have? I guess he's been in the league 3 years now, right? So
he started off with Matty Ice.
Matty Ice, right? That's decent, even though not great. Okay, then he went to Marcus Mariota, right?
Yep.
And slash Ritter. Was mathematically worse than Zach Wilson last year on all measures.
Yep. So and now he's got Cousins.
Now he's got Kirk Cousins. Yeah.
I think if he still sucks after this year, I think it's time to kind of,
I don't think he will. I think Pitts is.
I don't think so either. I think he's a great talent.
Yeah, we've seen Pitts do awesome things. Like I recall the London game when the Jets played them, he fucking tore us up, But like, all right. So, but basically, what I'm saying is like surefire tight end first rounders, like that are like, yeah, this guy's definitely going in the first rounder, tend to do better, right? Or don't bust because of their talent, maybe surrounding, right? Even Eric Ebron, I guess, is another one we could.
Yeah, Ebron was taken with the 10th overall. Actually,
still a very good player. Maybe not worth it, at the time.
No, not worth the 10th. Not worth a 10 overall pick at all.
I guess he was Detroit, right? That's where
his level of talent could easily be had, I think, in the second and third round. I think he's a good player, but
good player, yeah. But this one feels a little different. And also, I'm wearing a Keyshawn Johnson jersey. If you recall, he wore number 19. Guess what? Brock Bowers wore number 19. I'm a little bit more for it just because I think on paper, starting roster only, it makes them better, right? to have something else to kind of complement Garrett Wilson along with Mike Williams and Lazard. Like that all of a sudden becomes a real dangerous weapon room. And obviously Brees and Conklin, right? That's a really dangerous room now. And it was before Brock, it's just okay, right? It's still good, right? Really good, but and obviously complimenting Aaron Rodgers, but it's not what it's not one of the best units in the league, arguably, and like if I were to tell you, hey, the Jets are going to be a top 5 weapon room, including running backs, right, at the end of the year with Brock Bowers, you would believe it, right? You'd be like, yeah, that makes sense, right? If I were to tell you that without Brock Bowers, you'd be more hesitant to believe that's going to happen.
Yeah. So just to kind of throw it in here, like one of the main arguments, in discussions with Jet fans and videos that I've seen, other podcasts, stuff like that, is that with the first round pick, and tell me if you guys agree or disagree with this, but with the first round pick, it absolutely has to be and should be someone who is starting right away, impact right away. That's the main argument that I'm hearing from a lot of people. I think personally, though, that because of Tyron Smith's injury history, I think it's a guarantee that whoever we take at line will start. So I think that kind of refutes it, but I don't know. What do you guys think about
so what I would say in relation to that, right, is that the Jets kind of don't they drafted Will McDonald last year knowing he wasn't going to start and just be a rotational guy. So I don't think they're opposed to drafting guys that aren't going to start day one, immediate starter, right? And I think when you look at it from this team, yeah, John, I agree that adding Brock Bowers makes this a more powerful offense at the skill positions, right? That makes sense. But the problem is, and will continue to be, the fact that Tyron Smith does not play full seasons anymore. And I just really think that if you draft an offensive lineman who, again, won't be a day one starter today, will be a day one starter next year, you got to protect the quarterback. And if that means that the guy isn't a day one starter, I'm okay with that. Because, again, in week 6, week 8, week 10, when Tyron Smith has missed his second game and we're trotting out the corpse of David Bakhtiari or Carter Warren, or now we're moving AVT to left tackle because there isn't another option. It's that meme you sent earlier, Monty. It's, for those that aren't watching, it's Blake Griffin with his hands on his head and his mouth open wide with this just like exasperated look. And to me, basically says when Tyron Smith goes down in week 6, all the people who want Bowers or Doomsday are going to be freaking out when the Jets can't stop a nosebleed, right? And that's my worry. It's great that you have Brock Bowers, but if Aaron Rodgers is getting smashed on every play, right? It took 2 plays of Dwayne Brown to put Aaron Rodgers out for the season. And you can tell me all you want about, I should have got rid of the ball faster, but the play before that, he was pressured also, right?
Yeah, and also that was a shit chip block too. That block that he threw was absolutely shit.
And that goes to the caliber of the talent that they have, right? And so you got to get the offensive line right and have depth. And again, Aaron Rodgers, Jeremy Ruckert is going to be better with Aaron Rodgers. Tyler Conklin is going to be better with Aaron Rodgers, right? If Aaron Rodgers goes down, now Brock Bowers is kind of negated as well. Right. So,
luxury pick. That's basically what you're saying. And by the way, congratulations to Jeremy Ruckert for getting married.
Yes. Congratulations, Jeremy. That's
same,
awesome.
To a very beautiful woman, too.
Yeah. The same woman, I believe, that was in the draft video when he got drafted. So, yeah. And she made the little, the Billy Joel music clip, for the whole thing, which was cool. But anyway, it's a luxury pick, right? But, it is a win now team, right? And typically with win now teams, you kind of go luxury, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's
that's just
not.
how I see it. And like, I'm just gonna read these injuries that Tyron Smith has had these last couple of years. Okay, last year it was just hit or miss. He played 13 of the 17 regular season games. He missed a couple with some minor stuff. 2022, he suffered a torn hamstring in practice. He was on IR before the season started, and then he was activated in mid-December, moved to right tackle, and he played all the games, including the playoff games after that. 2021, suffered ankle injuries, so he missed weeks 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, and 16. So he got 11 games in. He was still a Pro Bowler, which is pretty incredible as it is. And last year, he was second team All-Pro. I will say that at the position. 2020, he had neck issues, and that basically put him on IR ending season. That is the big one miss. 2019, he started 13, got a 7th straight Pro Bowl at that time, and it doesn't really say much about the injuries. 13 games in 2018 as well. Missed 3 with injury. Doesn't say on Wikipedia. I'm sure you can look it up somewhere.
Draft Sharks is usually really good for that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Wikipedia because I just don't give a fuck right now, dude. Like, come on, man. Yeah, I mean, I get it, but anyway, so I guess
what you wanted the accurate, so I'm just telling you where you could get the accurate.
Okay, thank you very much. But anyway, well, so let's look at what somebody else mock draft, right? So now we are going to focus on the Kuiper Yates 3-round mock draft where they basically alternated picks, and Yates had the pick for the Jets, and he went Patanu. He went Patanu because he was thinking about Brock, right? Who ends up going, I believe, 2 picks later to Denver, which is such a Denver Broncos pick. Basically don't address a need, pick a guy, and then okay. But anyway, they went with Brock. We passed on Brock according to Yates, and we went Patanu basically because he can play 4 spots, right? And that's kind of what a lot of us are echoing, right? Maybe that's the play, right? And what's interesting is Patanu is the second lineman off the board in this mock draft. I don't know if Patanu is better than Waga. I don't know if he's better than Lathan even or Fashanu at this point. But it's just I think it's interesting.
I think at being a tackle, I think it's hard to if you're just looking for a pure tackle, I think it's hard to put Fatanu above guys like, Lathan's just like a beast. And, Fuaga is probably arguably one of the most NFL ready, tackle prospects. And, then you have Fashanu, who a lot of people like, and I like too. You have a bunch of people who are, in that ballpark, or a few people that are in that ballpark. But what I think is the most appealing, and I've said it many times, and it's said right here in that pick, OT/guard, right? It's not just OT, it's OT/guard. And one of the things that, a lot of people in the Jet fan base and probably the coaches love about, for example, AVT, is the fact that he can be thrown in at guard. He can be tackle. He can kind of play all over the line. And for a team like us, who's just been plagued with injuries, if that changes, then we don't need players like that, right? We can just get OT to play OT, and a guard to play guard, and a center to play center. We can do that stuff. But as of now, the Jets have not proven at all at any time in the last, almost a half decade that they are, they can be trusted to maintain a healthy line with a minimal amount of offensive linemen. Like, we need to have more linemen than the average team, and we need to be able to have people that play multiple roles. So that to me is what it's about with Fatanu.
So one of the things I would say about him being a guard and a tackle, right? I think one of the things that I've read, and I think the Jets are starting to understand with AVT, we've discussed it, on this, podcast before, is that one of the things that could have been a factor in AVT's injuries is the fact that he's playing everywhere, bouncing around, moving here, moving there. And I think that, if you're going to draft someone at a tackle position, right? Because where they need the most help is backing up Tyron Smith, right? Because as we saw, even the past couple of seasons, he doesn't miss the whole season, but it's 2 games here, 3 games there, 4 games there, right? And we want to make sure again that when those injuries, because this is the whole thing, right? You're not doing what the Eagles did when they drafted Andre Dillard, right? You had your front 5. They were solid. They weren't injured. Best offensive line in the NFL. And you drafted him because you said, at some point, we can plug him in, right? We know for a fact with Tyron Smith that whomever the backup left tackle is, they are going to play. So this isn't a pick where you're saying, we'll just stash this guy for 2 years, right? And so that's what I'm going to keep
realistically,
saying.
it's 1 year because both Smith and Moses are.
Of course, I'm just referring to Dillard, right? But yeah, it's not a pick where you're not going to – this guy's going to start next year and play a big role this year, right? And so I think with that in mind, you draft whomever you think is going to be the best left tackle. Because I think interior lineman position, you can also, I mean, there are still guys available. Connor McGovern's still available. He'd be a fine backup at all 3 interior line positions. So you can find backups interior that will work. But I just don't think at left tackle you have that luxury regardless of who's out there. So that's kind of why I'm pushing so hard at left tackle specifically.
Okay. So and that argument could be made that like Patanu, or maybe you're better off taking a more natural left tackle, right? In this draft, or like a just pure tackle, right? Because they're saying Patanu probably translates better to being a guard, or at least, some scouts are saying that. But anyway, so with that, I'm going to go to the other mock draft that we have here. And this one is, I forgot who the hell did this one. But anyway, the guy said the Jets are going to take Fuaga. I don't think it's Miller. I think that's it. Is that right? Is it Miller? I'm just going to read up real quick.
Yeah,
Miller. It's Miller. Okay.
Yep.
Miller says the Jets, and by the way, this was from the scouts. So basically, they had scouts doing the picks, and what an NFC South area scout said was Fuaga was going to be the pick, right? And also in the fucking thing before the little quote about it, before they even mentioned Fuaga, they went to Bowers. So it's basically Bowers or like a tackle of choice at this point. But basically, like, yeah, I mean, I think Fuaga could play left tackle. I mean, I know he's been playing right tackle because of kind of what Oregon State has been all about, but like, I mean, okay. I mean, like, I wouldn't hate the pick either, if it was Fuaga. I think, in terms of like someone being a true successful pick, I think Fuaga has a really good shot, right? And so does Fashanu, and those are the two that are, and Latham, right? I think all of those guys have a better shot at being a blue chip kind of guy than Fatanu does right now. But I could be wrong,
And I think, one of the Yeah, and I think one of the things that I want to be clear on from my perspective, and I think you guys will agree too, is that like if they draft Bowers, I'll be disappointed, but I'm not going to be furious, right? Because you draft Bowers, you're going to get a start, and you know that. I will be concerned though, right? And I think I said it last time is then the Jets need to do a lot of work to figure out what they're going to do at left tackle. And then the other thing that this does, if they are set on Bowers at 10, right, that eliminates everything we've been talking about in terms of trade down, right? So now you're drafting in the beginning of the 3rd round is your next pick. And unless they decide to mortgage future assets and trade back into the 1st or into the 2nd, I just am very curious as to who would be there that could maybe plug that role at tackle in the 3rd round. So that is an interesting piece as well, is if they are leaning Bowers, looking at pretty much every mock draft, it looks like the earliest Bowers would come off the board is 10, unless you guys have seen anything else. So
I've seen a couple here and there where he goes at 8, 9, something like that.
So
I've not seen anything before 8.
Yeah, I mean, we've been snorting football the last couple of weeks, just getting prepared for this mock draft. It's basically like, hey, you're at your boy's place, let's do a bump before we go out, a football, right?
Football.
Yeah. Football. It's almost here.
Yeah, we're so close, which is amazing. Finally, some real football content to talk about, after free agency.
And some clarity, too.
Some
clarity on this team structure, man.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I think
hypothetically this. Let's say they take Bowers, right? And then they start filling the backup roles with, like, capable starters, right, that are still out there. And there's plenty of them. Would you be comfortable with that? Because maybe that's what the Jets are thinking, right? Hey, let's see what's there at 10. We have an offensive lineman in mind because they're gonna have a big board, right? We don't know what it looks like, but we kind of do, right? They're gonna have a big board. They're probably gonna have, like, let's say, Alt higher ranked than Bowers, right? If Alt is there, they're probably just gonna land on it, right? I don't think it's gonna happen, but Alt could be there, right? They have a big board. That's probably how it is, right? And maybe they're okay with the second lineman instead of Bowers. But what if that second lineman is gone? Are they going to settle for number 3 because, they need one as a backup? Or are they going to go with Bowers? And also, we don't know what Rodgers thought about Bowers when he entered the building because they met.
Because that definitely matters. Whatever Rodgers said is going to matter too. Whatever he felt, I mean.
Yeah, he'll definitely have a sway. It's going to be interesting.
Bakhtiari and Mekhi Becton collectively for $4 million total.
If you bring in Mekhi Becton, I'm going to lose my mind. I don't want to hear his name again. I love you, John, but I can't hear his name again. If he's on this roster and steps foot on the field for anything other than in a 38-0 blowout where the Jets are winning, this season is over and lost. I'm sorry. I do not believe it. I love him as a guy. I don't want this to sound like he's a bad guy. He's a great guy. Same thing with Zach Wilson. They're great humans. They're great people. They represented the Jets well, haven't got it done on the field. So the two of them cannot be on this roster next year. I'm sorry to cut you off, John. I apologize, but I'm going to go on this rant every single time you bring up Becton. Now,
Adnan really loves Becton as a player. Just for those,
I like Becton
if you can tell.
Person. I follow him. Duke Mayweather did a lot of work with him the first time he got hurt. He's big ticket. He owned it as big boss. There's things about Beck and I feel bad for him because he was going to be really good after that first year. And even that first game against Brian Burns, he basically shut down Brian Burns.
I think he still might be, man. That's what I hate. I don't think he sucks. I think he still might be good. I think we just, I think he is a combination of poor work ethic with regard to his rehab and poor eating habits. I think it was also our poor scheme with, in our bad quarterback situation, our poor offensive coordination situation. And, it's just a lot of things came together for the perfect storm of him sucking and not being useful to us. I think he's absolutely a candidate for the type of player that's going to go somewhere else and do really well.
100%.
But I kind of feel like Adnan, I kind of want to part ways. It's the same shit with Zach Wilson. It's like Zach has a strong chance to do the same thing, but I don't want it to be here.
Yeah, dude. And listen, I think Zach, and hopefully it happens sooner, might be able to have that trajectory that Geno Smith did, right? And it's just not going to be here. And Zach maybe can go somewhere, get some coaching, reset, as the Jets kept saying, and then, maybe he can start somewhere else in a year or two. Same thing with Becton. Let him get somewhere. Let him get fully healthy. Let him get with a good offensive line coach, and let's see. And I hope they're both hyper successful.
Right.
It's just unfortunate it will be with the Jets.
All right. You guys want to see what Mel Kiper said the Jets were going to do?
Let's see it.
All right. Bowers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bowers. And he said it's really the first logical match I see for Bowers. first off, he's a 2-time Mackey Award winner, which is basically best tight end in college football. His head and shoulders above the other tight ends in this class. If the Jets are all in around Aaron Rodgers this season, taking Bowers would give them the best chance to make the playoffs. Make a playoff run, sorry. They brought in left tackle Tyron Smith, Moses last week, which lessens the need for immediate starter, and this just makes sense. But
I just don't understand that. Like, explain that to me. Like, how can you look at Tyron Smith? How can you look at his history? How can you look at the Jets' injury history? How can you look at our turf? How can you look at Morgan Moses, what he's had to go through, and AVT, what he's been through the last couple of years? How can people logically look at all those factors, right, as a whole, and then say our need at left tackle is lessened? Like, I don't think need is
I
lessened.
will say this. I will say this. Okay, so AVT is not playing in Denver this year for the foreseeable future. So there's that, right? And that's where all the injuries stem for some weird reason, hence not turf monster, inconclusive. Tyron Smith is actually on an incentive plan, basically, to make all the money that he wants to make. So maybe part of not playing as much in Dallas is the incentives. He has to play games in order to make that fucking money, right?
Yeah,
so maybe a little bit of that. I'm just bullshitting because
No, I asked the question. So
but I don't know, I mean, let's say if the playoffs started today and it was a March Madness style tournament, right? Let's just say that hypothetically, right? Would you rather have Bowers or would you rather have the backup?
In a March Madness style tournament, I guess you want the guy that's probably going to get you more points.
Yeah, Bowers. That's what the thinking is. I mean, I don't agree with it either, but I'm leaning a little bit more of an understanding of it, given that there's backups that are capable of being starters in backup role as originally backup.
So here's my question with that, and that's a good point. I know that I brought that up last week, and last time we're talking about that now. Like, these guys that are.
Yeah, sorry, but I spoke really fast. He just snorted some football right there.
They it's like the guys that are starters. Would they take a backup role? Or are these going to be guys that wait until the summer? Are there going to be teams, that come in and start signing these guys right after the draft because maybe they got jumped for the tackle that they wanted, right? Mm-hmm. But I also think, John, you say this all the time, and I agree with you. Most of the time when you say it about how we don't know about how we don't know the conversations that are happening in the building. We don't know the conversations that Joe Douglas is having with other people. I mean, maybe there's going to be a crazy June 1st cut that the Jets can take advantage of, or, something that they're looking at that they know that we don't, and we won't know until it happens, right? So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there that if they take Bowers, I really, really hope they have a solid plan, and it isn't. We'll see what happens. We have Carter Warren, right? So as long as they have some kind of plan there, I'll be much better. So for me with Bowers, it's going to be they make the pick, and I'm going to be like, great, what else? To me, if they take a tackle, I can sit back, and for me, the rest of the draft is gravy, right? Whomever they take, whatever they do, I'll be good with. Yeah. But if you're going to take Bowers, then for me, the rest of the draft, basically until training camp, is going to be what now? If they trade back into the first, if they trade to the top of the second and are able to get a tackle that's right. So there are going to be a lot of things that I'm going to be thinking about if they take Bowers. So
agreed.
Yeah. No, good, Monty. Good.
That's fine. They give something to talk about when something else happens, because it will happen if they take Bowers. They're not just going to settle with that. They're not. Yeah. How many active linemen do the Jets have right now on their roster? Because typically it's 9 and then reserves, right?
Yeah. So I think they have
5 starters. They have Smith, they have Simpson, Tippmann, Moses, right? They have Warren, Mitchell, Schweitzer. Do they have anybody else?
I think those.
I don't think that's it.
I think those are the. I think those are the 8 that will be on the active roster. They probably have some practice squad guys.
Practice squad guys that might be promoted.
But yeah, so I think it's those 8.
Yeah, it's those 8 too, and that's it.
We need one more for sure.
I'll take a look. Max. Okay, they have Austin DeCoulis. I have no idea.
He's a practice squad guy.
Practice squad guy. Obina Easy. I'm not even sure. This other Vitaly Gurman. Those are 3 tackles that are definitely.
I've actually heard of Gurman. I looked him up once.
We still have Moses and Carter Warren. All right. So and Max Mitchell. I didn't mention him. I'm just reading lists.
No, you said Mitchell. You said Mitchell. You just said Mitchell.
Okay, fair enough.
You didn't say Max.
Fair. My bad. Sorting football. So that's 6. Left tackle Tyron Smith. Okay, that's the only one that's designated. Okay, we have Vera Tucker and Simpson, Wes, and Jake Hansen. That's actually interesting. And Chris Glazer. Okay, so they have a lot of guys, but Glazer is under the top 51. Hansen's barely on it.
Those are all anyone but the top 5.
Okay, so they have a lot of guys, right? And obviously not
a lot of bodies, really.
Yeah, and I think one of the guys that's interesting is Schweitzer. He's a quality backup. He has starting experience. I think he played decently well before he got hurt. My concern again, man, is it's that left tackle spot. Because Carter Warren was okay when he played at right tackle. I wouldn't be too distressed if he had to play a couple of games at right tackle.
For Morgan Moses. I wouldn't be the worst. He's not. Yeah. I mean, he, especially down the stretch last few games, it was against the weaker teams on our schedule, but he still, was able to be competent. But again, the other thing is just, it's so this draft's just so tailor-made for you to go offensive line and then wide receiver. It just is like we have guys going in the 3rd round who could be on normal drafts that aren't as stacked at wide receiver, who could technically be early 2nd rounders, late 1st rounders. You got guys that we have access to, Keon Coleman and McConkey and Roman Wilson, all these guys would be 2nd round guys, that we can get in the 3rd. Why not just go the no brainer route, and do that? I don't know. I feel like just
your kick. Can anyone guess what Tyron Smith's cap hit is this year?
$8 million?
No,
way
less.
It's way less. It's $5 million, right?
It's way less than all that. It's 2.9 mil.
Oh, he's
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because all those incentives don't count against the cap.
Yeah, and there's some dead cap next year, right, and all that. But that's just fucking crazy to me. Wow. Okay. I mean, let's just say hypothetically you back up Tyron Smith and David Bakhtiari. Are you good with that?
That's not my favorite.
Man. I know what there are guys available, right? And I think
but that's as good as you could do in a backup role. You know what I mean? In a backup role, Bach is probably might have a.
I mean, listen, if he's healthy, right? And I read a lot, Monty. I know you brought this up about Bakhtiari much earlier in the offseason before free agency. That all the game, what has he played? 13 games total in 3 seasons, right? A lot of injury concerns. And I agreed with you 100% there, right? And I also look at it from the perspective, a lot of things that I've been reading is that, the reason why it was that is because he had a knee injury. It was misdiagnosed, and then it needed to be corrected. And now he's going to be healthy. If you give him a clean bill of health, and he's a guy that if Tyron Smith plays 13 games, right, before the playoffs, and Bakhtiari has to play 4, you can do a lot worse than that. So
I just snorted football right there, guys. Yeah.
You can do a lot worse than that, But
snorting football?
John, let's stay on task, man.
Fine. You could do a lot worse than that, exactly. But that's why I'm saying, like, hey, like, you know what? Might as well go home run. That's maybe what's going on in the building. And the Jets are also thinking Bach. And obviously, Bowers, there's a possibility that Bowers is not there at 10. We've seen the mock drafts. Like, Bowers may not be there.
That's if someone drafts him in the top 9, that will be my happiest moment until the Jets pick.
Yeah. So what I will say is that listen, it's still possible, right? Like all these paths like are possible. Like we saw the Bengals just a couple of years ago go to a Super Bowl with a bottom 5, bottom 7 ranked offensive line, just absolutely not good. Joe Burrow's getting pounded into the fucking grass all the time. That's happened.
Ending ACL injury too.
Yeah, and so listen, it's possible, but for me, I'm an odds guy, and I like high percentage behaviors. I like things that are going to give you the highest possible chance of success. And us going into the year with our line not shored up and not fortified, and then going Bowers, or going even wide receiver in the first round, without being able to pull an absolute hit at tackle later in the draft is just, you're asking for it. You're asking for trouble. You're asking for it. It's just lower percentage than just the simple path, keep it simple, stupid, KISS method, and keep it simple, great stupid band. Says absolutely great band. Keep it simple, stupid says get your O-line fortified and then get as good of a wide receiver as you can get. And then you have targets galore. Like how much better is Lazard going to be? How much better is, Conklin going to be? Breece Hall already led the entire league in receiving yards as a running back with dog shit throwing him the ball.
Tell me more, Monty.
Oh my God.
And then Garrett Wilson. That says nothing of Garrett Wilson, who's just gonna fucking go crazy. John's got orgasm over here.
Garrett Wilson's gonna have 2,000 yards. Oh gosh.
I mean, look, Garrett Wilson's
3,000.
He might actually score some. Forget about the yardage. He might actually score some touchdowns. That poor guy.
But 4 touchdowns in his by year in his first game total.
It's insanity. Yeah. And I think like Monty, you're hitting the nail on the head, man. Everything you're saying is right. And I think to add to like the cliches, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. Right?
Well said.
If the Jets keep forgetting their past with injuries, it's going to happen again. They're going to be caught flat-footed. And you know what? Then Joe Douglas and Saleh and everybody are out of here. Rodgers might leave too, and we're starting over.
And that's what I absolutely want to avoid at all costs, because it's just, I could definitely see a Joe Douglas and Saleh and those guys being like, oh well, it's like what are the odds that happens 3 years in a row, blah blah blah. Like what are they? I could just like anyone else. There's a lot of Jets fans saying that, like, oh well, we can't be scared and we can't draft these guys. They got to play if we draft them, and we got to assume that they can play and this and that. And like I can see a lot of that rhetoric being uttered, but you just got to go with reality until proven otherwise. Until proven otherwise, you have to go with the reality. And the reality says the Jets are going to lose a couple of players, possibly for season, every year on the line. And that's just what we need to be mentally prepared for. And if we're not, we're practicing malfeasance.
Yeah, we're drafting D-line then, right?
Oh, Jesus. I saw a couple mocks with D-line.
Byron Murphy and Quinton Williams would be a fucking sick combo.
Like, dude, just listen. If they do that, this laptop is going through my TV.
I was just gonna say, I'm just gonna throw my TV.
Yeah, I'm on the first flight from North Carolina to Newark, and I'm going to wait for Joe Douglas to show up
outside of work. With the crowbar.
I will lose my mind. Yeah, right. Like,
you
can't do that. You can't do that. Please don't do that.
We make a Netflix special
Yeah.
about me and Adnan if that happens.
Right.
Basically, what you guys are saying is going to happen is Roger's going to quit after everything falls apart, right? And then, like, he's going to go to Minnesota, I guess, right? That would be the move, right? Just to
I mean,
complete
that
this
would be
Just to complete this weird fucking
Yeah.
Brett Favre story arc that he's
It'll be the
following in his life.
It'll be
Jesus.
it'll be almost the same thing, right? Favre got hurt in his first season, didn't tell anybody. Unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers couldn't do that, you know. So, but no, I think it'll be. Look, I think this team is trending in such a positive direction. You know, I think that everything they did in free agency was exactly what they needed to do. But now there's just this like atom bomb hanging over your head. And it's that left tackle position. Because if something goes wrong there and you aren't ready to fortify, it's gonna be, you know, lights out, in my opinion. You know, I think that this is the one team, and I get it. Every team's left tackle is of ultra importance, no doubt. But I think this is the one team that if their left tackle goes down, the season is over.
Yeah.
So you have to prepare for that.
I'm ready to get hurt again. I think that's how I'm going to say it.
I mean, listen, look, everybody's ready, man. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're fans. We're all in.
Yeah, it's that ex-girlfriend that hits you up. You know, she's the fucking best. But, you know, you just hope for the best, you know? And then she fucking kicks you out of your apartment.
I think, you know, when we kind of extrapolate this out, right? Like the whole draft and looking at like what they can really accomplish here. I mean, this roster, and realistically, right, outside of a Bowers pick or a Rome Odunze, is anybody they draft going to be a day one starter? Probably not. This roster is pretty stacked if you look at it, right? I mean, if you draft Odunze, he's going to play in 3 receiver sets with Williams and Garrett Wilson. You draft Brock Bowers, him and Conklin are going to play a lot, and Rucker will be your 3rd tight end. But like outside of that, I mean, look at every other position. You're probably not drafting a starter.
Yeah, I mean, even at wideout, like, you know, if we get someone in the second, if we trade back, or if we get someone in the, you know, in the third, you know, those guys are going to be battling with Alan Lazard for, you know, 3rd and 4th spot. You know, that's what's going to happen there, and you know, until Mike Williams inevitably misses some time, but you know, he's not as much of a threat to, you know, miss extended time as, you know, Tyron Smith. So.
Yeah, and another thing, man, that I want to make sure that we call, it's crazy, right? 2 drafts ago, the Jets had 2 first-round picks, took Sauce and Garrett. They could have taken anybody at those picks, and it would have filled a need, right? Yeah. Now we're talking about this roster 2 drafts later, and they don't have a glaring hole at a starting position.
That's
right?
true.
So I think like this roster, the talent infusion over the past 22, 23 going into this, you know, NFL draft, I mean, the talent is there. You know, there are very few teams that can go into this draft and be like, it doesn't matter who we take, you know? And I think that's how you kind of look at it at the Jets at 10 is, we've said it, as long as you take an offensive player, you kind of can't go wrong, you know? So it's going to be really interesting.
So, D-line. I know, I already did that joke once. Yeah.
Stop recycling jokes.
Right? It wasn't funny the first time.
I mean, it was funny the first time. The second time it really was. I mean, I could recycle the Lisa Ann cameo. Do you guys want to do that? I mean, that is really like appropriate for this show. You know,
I know, right?
Yeah, go back a couple episodes. Tell you what, all the Spotify and YouTube subscribers, there is a clip of Lisa Ann making an appearance on the show through Cameo. Go check it out. Search through all the videos in order to find it, you know, so we get more views on that shit. You know?
By the way, you can watch the videos on Spotify. It's not just audio on Spotify. You can if you want, but it's just
really?
Yeah, it's just Spotify's added that functionality. So if you went to the page, you can, if you're looking at your phone directly or watching on a computer, you can see the video, but most people just listen to Spotify, so that's why it's just
and you can watch more Lisa Ann content on your phone, on your laptop, you know, through other websites.
Yeah, she does a lot of gambling content now.
She's very well known.
Yeah, a lot of fantasy
for
football
gambling,
stuff. Yeah. I don't know what else John is talking about.
Yeah, me neither.
You know, he's making insinuations that don't need to be made on this high quality,
not really
wholesome podcast.
Journalistic, wholesome.
Yeah, so that's
not a joke or
let's keep it above board, John. You know, let's definitely talk her up about her. She has a podcast. She's written 2 books, which I hear are excellent. So, you know, go check those out for Lisa. Yeah. So go check those out for Lisa Ann. She's doing a great job. And now we're going to segue back into the draft because that's kind of the intent of this show. And I want to hear a little bit more about like,
boobs.
about like the I think we really should dig in a little bit into like the 3rd round pick, right? Okay. Because if they're going to go Bowers, right now, that 3rd round pick. So let me ask you guys this. Let me frame it this way. Mm-hmm. If they go Bowers, do you think that increases the likelihood they trade into the 2nd or into the 1st again and sacrifice future assets? Or if they draft Bowers, does that make them more content to just say, these are our picks and this is what we're going to do?
Okay, I got 2 scenarios. I got a couple things to say on that. Okay, so in that 3-round mock draft, I think Kuiper had the 3rd round pick. He went with the safety, which is interesting because you could say that's the weakest starting role right?
Fair.
All right, so this is what I'd be willing to do if I were the Jets and like somebody fell, like a Guyton or something like that, right? To kind of make Adnan super happy. And the same feeling I got when they traded up to get Jermaine Johnson. I literally, like, you guys remember Michelle, right? I literally just smacked her ass so hard when that happened.
So much for keeping things above board, man. So much for keeping things above board.
Anyway, so this is how I can see it, right? If early in the 2nd, someone is there, right, that fell, I can see the Jets trading a future 2nd and their 3rd round pick to get up there. I'd be cool with that, right? I would also be cool with the Jets late in the 1st, right? Or like mid 1st, right? Trading a future 1st and this year's 3rd to get back in the 1st this year. I'd be cool with that too.
Oh, man.
Well, think about it. That 1st round pick is going to be like,
it's going to be late.
Also, like Bowers would hit, right? Then, like, you got to figure out.
I'm also okay with that.
Plus, right? I mean, they're going to be in the playoffs.
I'm okay with future capital because if we do well, we're already set up, and if we do badly, the whole thing's getting blown up anyway, and we're gonna suck ass.
Yeah, so it would be the 3rd time Joe Douglas traded up in the 1st.
It literally makes sense for us to use future capital at this point. It really does. Because if this works out, we're good. We are a good team,
and we're snorting Jets Super Bowl parade football
for like at least for about 2 years.
Like, hey, remember that one time we started a podcast and then they won the fucking Super Bowl?
You know? Oh man,
dude! And then John got some girl knocked up, and then like take care of it.
This is like. This is the
That's how you would celebrate for sure.
That's a good plan.
I'm like, who wants it?
That's a good plan, John. That's a great plan. But yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean,
no prenup. Yeah.
I think the way that, the more I think about it, I think I'd be okay trading that 1st rounder because again, it's going to be, hopefully an end of the round pick, and next year's draft isn't this year's draft, right? So like picking at the end of the 1st round, you're not going to get as quality of a player as you would by trading back into the first round here. So, yeah, I mean, if you can
do some math. Who wants to do
Bowers,
some math with me? Who's ready to do some math?
yeah, let's do some
Draft
math.
value. Okay, so
You
to
do
get
that
back
math.
into the first, right, you got to figure that pick is going to be worth. They say on average you go with pick 18, right? So that's like 900 points, right?
For the following year, right?
For
If
the
you're trading a
following year,
future
right?
first.
That's typically
Yeah.
the rule of thumb. Although, like I think they said with the Chiefs trading up, potentially their pick would be worth like pick 24 or something like that, right? So, but let's say it's worth pick 18, 900 points. So Jets third rounder is worth 230, right?
So that's 1130.
Second rounder would be worth 400. That's not going to do it. But essentially, to get back into the first round, you have to trade a first and your third, right? And pay a premium. You theoretically, and let's say it's a 20% premium, right? And you got to look at teams that you could potentially do that with, right? I mean, the options are really, you got to look for a team that, like, I don't know, is either looking to build draft capital, doesn't have an immediate need to draft something right now, right? I mean, I could think of Detroit being an option. That'd be like pick 29. That's worth 640. And they'd say yes to that, right? If someone fell really that far, right? Because they don't really have any needs except on defense, right?
Yeah.
So that would be next year's first and this year's third to get to that Detroit pick.
Yeah. Let's see.
I mean, why the hell not?
Would Pittsburgh be stupid enough to do that? No.
No, they have too many needs. I think they have too many needs.
What about Philadelphia?
Too many needs, man.
Do they have too many or they have not enough? Because
no, they have too many needs. Because if you look at it, like
I feel like they are still pretty solid.
I mean, look at all the. I mean, they did sign Huff, obviously, but they did lose pieces on defense.
They just re-signed.
They might take that Oregon center there. Actually,
that's the thing. They lost Kelsey, so
they just re-signed Devonta Smith.
What about Dallas? What about Dallas? 740 points.
I don't know if they. I mean, they have a lot. They did nothing in free agency. I don't think they can.
They have cap issues.
Right, no, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think they can leave this draft without a first round pick.
Okay. What about obviously Buffalo's a no? What about Arizona's second first round pick, which is at pick 27, 680?
That's
they have a lot of needs, but
they have a lot of needs. They're not going to solve it with that one pick, right?
Yeah, and if they can get because they are in a
draft.
They are in a multi-year rebuild. But the other thing you have to think about, though, again, is that, like, teams will do their projecting as well, right? So are the Cardinals going to be like, this team could be good? Are we going to take a pick in the 20s? I think that's tough with them.
Okay.
Because they have
a team that is still in salary cap hell. And also, that's another thing you got to remember. Teams are in salary cap hell, don't have cap space to actually, do it, with so like, I guess you got to think who's still in salary cap trouble. That is a good example. Well, actually, there's really not that many. Everyone's kind of ready for it, right? I guess you got to look, where's New Orleans at? They're always in fucking hell. New Orleans pick what? I think I saw it was 15 or something like that, right? 14. That's probably too high, right?
Yeah, I don't think you're getting there for a first and a third.
That's probably too high. And somehow they have $8 million in space, so they're out, right? The Bucks have only $495K in space. That's interesting.
Damn.
Bucks are pick 26. That's interesting.
That is tight.
That could, because I mean, I don't know the Bucks roster inside and out, but how many needs do they really have?
Let's see. The O-line is pretty good.
The receivers are good. Rashad White was good last year, so I think they're good at running back. They have Baker.
Defense. Where we got on defense? Todd Bowles loves his defensive guys. They did just bring back Whitehead at center. Did they sign Winfield again?
They franchised him. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know if they signed him, but they still have him. I forget if they signed him or not.
Have they recovered from? Do they have Carlton Davis, whatever his name is, right? The Jets are the second lowest cap space left. That's interesting.
But they have a ton of maneuverability to restructure, so I think they can
they
do.
And they will. Edge, they don't really have any. Yeah, Tampa doesn't really have a needed edge. I'm looking at it right now. So they have Shaq Barrett on a dead cap. That hurts. Randy Gregory. That's interesting. I didn't realize Randy Gregory was in Tampa. Okay, they have an edge need. They have an edge need. Yeah. They have an edge, for sure.
So are you going to trade that pick? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I think also it depends, right? Like who's there. Is there a team that's like, oh, all the guys we would had a first round grade on are gone. Let's see if we can get a first rounder for next year, right? So yeah, it's
San Francisco and Kansas City. No.
Listen, speaking of San Francisco,
that's not even worth the first rounder anymore. You know what I mean?
Listen,
it's really not. That's worth the second rounder and the third.
Speaking of San Francisco, can we just do the trade we talked about? Send them 10 for Ayuk and their first rounder, right? Can we just do that, Monty? Can we just get to Joe Douglas somehow? Be like, can we just do this?
I'll never say another bad thing about Joe Douglas ever.
I want to use that. Because yeah, I mean, if they didn't have Mike Williams, I'd say yes, but they got Mike Williams.
You got Mike Williams for 1 year, man. You got 3 good receivers. Yeah, that's the equivalent of the Bengals with Chase, Higgins, and Boyd.
Right.
Well, they also have Alan Lazard. I'm smiling.
I don't want to hear. I feel almost as strongly about Lazard as I do about Becton, but I'm
only because he's so damn expensive. Jesus Christ, could we have been more fleeced on a contract than that Alan Lazard?
I think Lazard's bounce back.
Yeah, John has this.
Still young.
He is a bounce back candidate, but bounce back to what? 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, I don't know. Great. Aaron Rodgers.
No. His last year in Green Bay was like 750 and 6 touchdowns.
He's the McCole Hardman of the Packers.
He's the wide receiver 3. That's more than fine. And if you have Bowers, he's really the 4th receiver.
He's the McCole Hardman from the Packers.
Because you have Breece Hall too. So you don't really have to depend on that. It just needs to draw some space. That's really what that has to do.
Yeah, well, too much freaking money. I wish he'd restructure his whole contract to.
Yeah, he's not restructure. Give back
longer.
Or he just really needs to just say, hey, Aaron Rodgers, actually, here's half my contract because apparently that is the only way I can play football is with you. So you are half of me.
I don't know. Something about Bowers just him saying that he'd really love to play with Mahomes or Rodgers kind of just makes me think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, how many guys would say that? Everybody wants to play with Rodgers. Rodgers is a great teammate. He's a great quarterback.
He's one of the greatest quarterbacks that ever played football, and he's still playing football. So, of course.
Any great pass catcher is gonna want to play with him or Mahomes, So
but he didn't say. Who else is great that's still in the league right now, right?
He could have said Josh Allen. He could have said Lamar or.
Lamar might be historically great. He has 2 MVPs. That's
So I get it. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, man, I don't think that should be the reason they draft him because he said he loves Aaron Rodgers. He's a guy that, he'll be a nice piece to this offense, but you gotta.
But all right, hypothetically, let's say Brock Bowers ends up becoming Kelsey because that's, I guess, or Kittle, right? It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it until Tyron Smith goes down, and then the Jets are fighting for the 7th seed instead of winning the division. Right? It's all worth it.
Wait. So let's stop on that for a second. Is it worth it if he's Kittle, or does he need to be Kelsey? I think he needs to be kind of more Kelsey level.
Kittle's more all around,
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, Kittle. Bowers he's a serviceable blocker, right, John? He can block.
Kittle is one of the best blocking tight ends.
Well, I'm talking about Bowers.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about Bowers.
Bowers can block.
Yeah, he can block. So, if he can be a Kittle type, Kittle in his heyday, he was probably top 2, top 3 tight end in all of football. So,
but we need that. We need that production, though. You're not bringing Bowers here to block.
Oh no! Of course.
Bringing Bowers to score some fucking touchdowns.
I love Kittle is one of my favorite players in the league. I love like sometimes when he blocks, like he just like starts laughing, because he's
Yeah.
He's great. He's
and then
really
when the
great.
cameras are coming from weird angles, like he looks at it and points at it and smiles and waves. Like he does some really funny. Like like if he was a Jet, I would fucking love that.
No,
Of all the guys in the league, like let's say if you had to steal a guy from any team and make him your teammate, besides like Mahomes because he's so historically great, I think Kittle would be my choice.
any player, it would be Kittle. It
Just
would
because of talent and personality. Yeah.
That's.
I don't
who
know.
else has that great
I think
personality?
I think if you're taking him top 10, which is one of the highest that a tight is like top, he's tied for top 5 highest draft capital spent on a tight end in the last 25 years. I think if you're spending that and you're taking that level of a chance on a guy, I think he's got to be. If he's not top 3 tight end, like what are you doing?
Right. No,
he needs to absolutely be like Kelsey Andrews.
That's
I mean,
exactly
Kittle is on that level, but he isn't consistently on that level like Kelsey is. Kelsey is consistently wide receiver 1 of the Chiefs.
Hypothetically, that's though. Let's say because I think the comparison for like out of the gate would be Shockey, right? Because Shockey out of the gate was first team All Pro, right?
Right.
It was nuts, right? And then Shockey got too full of himself, started Tara Reid, who I love Tara Reid. For
John, above board. This is a wholesome show. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Come on, call out to the fucking turbulence. What do you fucking want from me, dude?
Yeah, right. He's feeling real turbulent right now.
Yeah, he's actually turbulent right now.
My first call tomorrow is at 10 o'clock, so I have time.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
But no, back to what. No, but John, I think Monty, that's and John, that's a fair question, right? Like, what should Bowers be to make this pick worth 10 overall, right? And like, I don't know, like, if he's not a Pro Bowler, but he scores 7 touchdowns and has 650 yards, 700 yards. Is that a success, right? Or are we going to look at it and say, oh, Bowers only did this? I mean, we were
just remember that he would be blocking a lot. So like you'd have like the ceiling in terms of the expectation. It wouldn't be 1,000 yards, right? Like that wouldn't be a fair expectation, right?
But I think that
would be a fair expectation.
Exactly.
It would be.
Well, that's Kyle Pitts' first year, basically.
He should be able to do what Kelsey does every single year as a second rounder.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's kind of the other thing with Bowers is that, like, the expectations out of the gate are going to be, if you're drafting him at 10 overall, and I know we're comparing him to, like, Shockey and Kittle and Kelsey, but he's going to have to be a better version of Sam Laporta, right? Sam Laporta had an incredible rookie season. Yep. He was drafted in the second round, right? Yeah. If you're drafting a guy 10 overall, he has to be better than Laporta was last year. And if he's not,
he's more talented than Laporta for sure.
Of course, but my point is that
so they say it's got to translate though.
Yeah, and we also got to see in this offense, again, it's weird to say, and it sounds strange coming out of my mouth, but using another mouth analogy, there are going to be a lot of mouths to feed on this team. Brees has to get his. Garrett has to get his. Mike Williams has to get his, right? So it's like the opportunities may not be there for Bowers for him to be that. And if he isn't, people are going to be disappointed. I think
all I care about in terms is the W's, basically, and also we know that this offense.
I mean, as fans, of course, that's what we care about.
Yeah, I don't care about the stats so much. I care about the W's, right?
No, I agree as well, and I think when you look at it, but you're also going to have people, right, and probably not us as much, but like people get attached to players, right, and we're a fan podcast. And I think, when you look at Jet fans, like you said, Monty, the Bauer boys, they're going to be all over him when they draft him. And I just think there are going to be certain expectations, and I don't want him to be like, to just be killed because he's not meeting these expectations we have set that are through the roof for him. He's going to be one of many mouths to feed, which again is crazy to me because even last season, outside of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, we were like, and what? So I think it's a good problem to have. But
the last time the Jets had an opportunity that actually did swing on a tight end this high was Kyle Brady. Holy shit.
Yes. And that's another thing, right? If you subscribe to the fact that the Jets aren't great at drafting tight ends and are awful at drafting second round wide receivers for the most part, that's another thing, but we'll see. We'll know in exactly 1 week. They'll be picking around 9:30 p.m. next Thursday.
So what did we land on for the third pick though? What did we say? Like, let's say we keep things as is, we get Bowers, what's who are there? Yeah, or let's say we don't, let's just keep it as is. We have the 10th pick, we get Bowers. Like, what's that next? It's got to be OT. Do we have any names?
Yeah, I mean, well,
I think
Guyton would be maybe someone that falls, right? There's
not to the third round, right? Guyton's not going to fall.
The BYU kid whose name I have unbelievable amount of time fucking trying to pronounce and fail every time. There's also the kid from Yale who I've been kind of talking about.
Yeah, Kieran. Amengaje.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys that are capable.
Well, John, I don't want to cut you off, but I think what Monty's alluding to, like, who's going to be there if they decide not to trade up? Like, those guys aren't going to be there in the third round.
Right.
Those guys are going to go in the first two rounds.
I understand, but as you get later in the draft, teams are more inclined to trade back.
Fair, but again, I think if we look at it from that perspective of they can't, right? I mean, look, I think they wanted to trade down in the first round last year and couldn't find a trade partner.
That's true.
So they took McDonald's.
Right?
Understand. So, I mean,
what about early second to pick one of those tackles, right? I mean, let's go through some of those teams, right? Carolina's definitely going to make a pick with their first pick in the second.
What about Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame?
He was projected to be a third rounder. That could fall to 72.
That's what I'm saying. That seems like that's who I'm thinking about.
Carolina does have 2 second-round picks, and they're in the biggest rebuild I've ever seen. So
yeah, I mean that's
one of those.
That's interesting though. Blake Fisher. I mean, if you can get him.
6'6", 310.
Yeah, and you get your offensive weapon at 10. I mean, I feel much better then.
Yeah, but see, that's but back to what we've been talking about. That's the thing is like, if you go Bowers or wide receiver or something like that ahead of time, earlier, then your options at tackle diminish to almost nothing. You got like 2 shots, and you better hope other people aren't taking them, or else you're just screwed and you're picking someone you don't want.
Yeah. Well, the Jets have the last 2 picks of the draft too, so maybe they can hit tackle with 256 for Mr. Irrelevant pick.
Imagine
1 second, guys.
Imagine Mr. Irrelevant.
Start ending the show anyway because it's been an hour 20 almost.
Yeah.
So I guess Adnan, you can do your final thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the big thing is we're 1 week away from the draft, and that is such a great feeling. We have a lot of good things to look forward to, and I think again, no matter who the Jets take, whatever they do, I think we're going to be happy. If it's Bowers, there are going to be things that we're going to look at and say, now what? But I don't think you can go wrong. And we're excited. We're going to be on live for the draft, so hopefully some people can check that out, and we'll just keep plugging away. And I cannot wait for 1 week from today. This is one of my favorite days of the year, the draft. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I am just beyond hyped for the draft. I'm, I'm ready to start seeing like a more solid direction. I mean, obviously we saw what we've done and, in the off season and free agency, and we've made a lot of moves, but I think the draft really solidifies what they're thinking, how they're thinking, what this team's going to look like a lot more. I think, the draft is really what solidifies that. And that's what I'm really, really most excited to see. If it's Bowers, I mean, I guess I'll get over it because, we end up with supposedly one of the top, actually he is the top pass catcher as far as, compared to the other top three besides like Marvin Harrison. He technically is the top pass catcher, not named Marvin Harrison in the draft. So, to get someone at that level is great. I guess you could technically argue that we should not at all even think about going wide receiver in the first, and we should only either be looking at Bowers or tackle. If we're gonna do that, I think there's an argument to be made there. So I'm feeling pretty good. I think we're in a good place. We're going to a good place. I think that we're at a point where it's hard to fuck it up, and I think that I think we're and we're blessed in that way. But again, I just want us to keep it simple, not try to get too cute, and try to take the more traditional route because of the fact that it's such a make or break year. If it was a year ago, and we had, we knew we had another year possibly to play around if something happened or whatever, but it's all on the line this year. And I think we should take the more surefire route to the playoffs, and then whatever happens, happens. And if it doesn't happen this year, we would get one more crack, maybe two, with this roster or most of it, to be able to really get to the promised land. So, well, we'll get that clarity next week. It's gonna be a great time. We hope you guys listening at home will join us for that live. We'll be glad to entertain y'all while you're watching the draft, and looking forward to next week.
Cool. We're probably going to start the show at 7:45 p.m. right before the draft starts next week.
Yep.
Yeah, that just seems to make sense. So that's when we'll start. It'll be on YouTube primarily. We'll attach I know there's a way that people can enter and just bullshit around. Maybe we'll have Smokey from Jersey pop on for a little bit, or something like that. We'll think about that, and we'll probably create a StreamYard link so you guys can come in, and then maybe I'll let you in so you can just, I don't know, just tell us how much you love our show.
Yeah, or ask questions, interact with us. We'd love to have it.
Or tell us how much you hate how much you hate me, right? I bet if we did a Survey Monkey, I would be the most hated person in this group. I know Adnan.
Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, you have your moments.
Yeah, I do. A couple people said Adnan.
Maybe that's why. Maybe don't say I do.
Okay, great. A couple people said Charlie Day and Adnan are the same, basically. That was funny.
Charlie Day is one of my favorite people on earth, so I take that as the utmost and highest compliment.
Yeah. Anyway, my final thoughts. Okay. I'm ready to get hurt again. I'm wearing a number 19 jersey, Keyshawn. I just think it's just gonna be great. Just whatever they do, just kind of will give you the idea of what the Jets are doing, right? In terms of how they plan this season. Hey, it's an all-in pick, right? It's really an all-in pick. And this roster, Joe did a fucking great job in this offseason, basically putting themselves in a position where Bowers is actually a fucking option at this point, right? We were going in, to free agency saying no way Bowers could be an option, right? They need help at the tackles and help at the receivers. And they fucking solved all that. And then they lost Huff and they got Hassan Reddick. So it's what the hell did Joe Douglas do? He basically put himself in the position to go best player available. If it's Bowers, so be it. If it's offensive lineman, we all understand and we're still for it. I am ready to be hurt again. Go out there, swiping right on everything, whatever they do, I will swipe right on, no matter what. Unless it's I don't know, another edge guy. It's possible, but who knows? But anyway, in the meantime, still 7 days away. Fuck the Patriots. Fuck the Dolphins. Fuck the Bills.
Go Jets.
Thank you, and see you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace.